I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
You're welcome along to the football show. So we'll be going live to Russia later in the hour to check on Dan McDonnell's Russian adventures. But right now, John Giles is in studio. 53106 is the text number. We're live on all our social channels as well. Facebook.com/offtheball, YouTube.com/offtheball, and on Twitter as well. Thanks for hanging around, John.
How about it?
We were just saying there's a lot of noise when you're watching games these days, particularly out in that office where you were having to sit through England against Belgium, and it's hard to concentrate and fully take in 90 minutes.
No problem there.
They were fine, were they?
Yeah, grand. Yeah, no bother.
When you were on the panel, did you like to sit in silence and watch the game and fully take everything in, or was there constant
a fair bit of
talk
chat
with producers and with the other panellists?
Well, not so much the producers. With probably fellow panellists, there would be a bit of chat, all right.
Yeah. How did you break down a game? Did you take a lot of notes when you'd be sitting watching a match? Because I guess, as we see tonight, commentator hands back 30 seconds after the final whistle, the first question would come to you and you have to somehow sum up a game instantly.
Well, the way it worked when I was on the panel anyway was that I did most of the analysis, right? And we weren't very up to date with the technology of doing the analysis. I had to talk to somebody upstairs and I'd be watching the screen by the side. Said there was a goal scored, to analyse it, say, look, come back on that, I want to see it, and talk to it, stop it there and hold it there and hold it there. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world because I'd be missing a bit of the game. So, but you'd have to get it. Like if there was a goal 2 minutes from half time, we wouldn't be able to do it. But if there was a goal, say, after 10 minutes, then you'd be a while doing that, and then you'd be looking at the game as much. So I'd be concentrating more on, if I was on with Liam and them, they'd be chatting more about it because
you were picking the clips.
I was picking the clips, and you had to get them ready for half time. When I did that, then we would talk about it, you know. I'd say, well, Eamon said, well, I'll take that, and Liam said, I'll take that. And so we shared it out among ourselves, you know.
Yeah. It sounds quite difficult to get a good grasp of what's happening for 90 minutes.
Well, funny enough, when we had the old, what do you call it?
So the screen where you'd be able to basically write over it.
The old scratch pad was easier because you could do it on the run.
Okay.
I mean, if I was doing it, you see, I could actually do the analysis on the run myself, and they just record it.
Ah, right.
Right. Now, we didn't have the technology to do it like that, so I had to talk to somebody up, say, look, can you go back to the goal? Stop it there, come back, you know, and it took longer to do than doing it on the fly, because you get to half time, like 2 minutes from a goal, then you'd be doing the scratch pad, and you could actually do it on that. You could say, well, play that again, but you could actually do it.
So you're actually seeing it 3 or 4 times in real time and working it out in your head in real time.
Exactly, to do it, you know, because you would have seen a repeat of it anyway, but when you were doing the scratch pad, you actually did it during the half time. You didn't do it beforehand. When we got rid of the scratch pad, we were supposed to bring better technology in, it was more difficult to do.
And when you were doing those pieces, and you're live on RTE, so it's a huge television audience, and you've got, particularly say for big events like Champions League, World Cup, you've got a real mix of your hardcore football fans who watch everything and people who take more of a passing interest. Who are you talking to? Are you trying to make it as simple as possible? You're talking to...
Oh yeah, definitely talking to the fans. I mean, people said to me I was educating the fans, and I never ever thought about educating the fans. You see, when you're an ex-player, then this is what I thought of anyway. Once I go on I'm a panellist now. I'm not an ex-player. So I have to do, and Eamon and Liam were the same, to do the best we could to make it as enjoyable for the viewer as we could. And I told you about John Madden. Did I told you about John Madden?
Yeah, that's how I was, because I watched a lot of John Madden back then after you mentioned it that night, and it's such a thing of watching American football even still. It's such a complicated sport with so many different plays, yet within 10 seconds they're watching it back and explaining exactly what's happening with the defence.
That was for the viewer, right? Now what I was trying to do, with John Madden in so the viewers would watch and hopefully make it more enjoyable for the viewer. So what you have to try and do is reduce it to simplicity, right? Knowledge equates to simplicity. And analysis, you have to be bang on because viewers are seeing exactly what you're talking about. And it has to make sense, right? So what I tried to do was to say, okay, I'm going to try to make as much sense. Anybody viewing it can actually say, oh, I can understand that, right? Say the fullback, the right back, the ball goes down the opposite side to the right fullback, right? And he doesn't seem to be involved in it at all. But he'd be the key man over the other side of the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what you have to say, keep an eye on this guy. He should be around there and he's not. So the viewer hopefully could see it and say, I can see that. So it was simplicity. But I wasn't trying to educate anybody. I was trying to make it more enjoyable for the viewer. And that was the analysis as we were doing it at that particular time.
You often talk about Tim O'Connor and his role and the freedom he gave. Was it spoken about the entertainment factor? Was that something you were very aware of, that people,
No.
they're not just tuning in to watch a footballing match, they're tuning in to be entertained?
I didn't know whether it was entertaining or not. what I was going on, when I saw John Madden doing it in American football, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought, well, I hopefully, when we're doing it with the soccer, that the viewers will enjoy it. That was the main thing, you know.
Did you find it stressful?
No.
Even from the start, it was,
No,
you were comfortable in it?
I never found television stressful at all. Because when I went on it, actually, the first time I went on, I thought, well, this is going to be a short period. This is doing it for the World Cup and end the story. But even when I got on a permanent basis, I think, if there is a secret to television, I don't think the secret is not to be aware of the cameras. I never cared about television. You know, I never cared about being on television. It never bothered me. I was talking football. And I didn't know where the cameras were. I didn't care where the cameras were. I'm talking football to the viewers, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. Hopefully they'll enjoy it.
Did you prefer the post-match stuff that was almost instant, as you say? You're watching the game live, you're trying to give a bit of feedback to producers as to what you want, or did you prefer the pre-game where you had a few hours, probably you're there all day, picking out clips?
Well, obviously it's easier to post-match than on the run. Because you have time to look at it and you have time to think about it and you try to see it and run it over again. Doing it on the run is difficult because you could miss something or you wouldn't get it right and that. So it was obviously easier to do last week's match to get the analysis.
Yeah.
To get the analysis right. It was easier. I used to go in the morning of the game to go through it. Now in the World Cup you'd be every day. Eamon obviously would come in some of the Lehman's, but I'd always run the analysis past Liam and Eamon.
Okay.
So we would decide that. Well, Eamon said, "Well, I'll take that." Liam said, "We'll take that." That's the way we worked.
Yeah, watching tonight's game, there wasn't a huge amount to analyse. We had, I think, 9 changes for England, 10 changes for Belgium. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, there's always something to analyse on it, Nathan, to be quite honest. If I was doing it tonight, I would show, if I had time, to show the difference between England's last match, where they had this formation in the midfield, in relation to the midfield they had tonight. See, I think there should be continuity. And I think Belgium got much more out of that game tonight. Martinez got much more out of the game than Southgate. Because I think they played tonight the way the first team plays. And I think they were technically better than England, by the way. But in England had Delph, Dyer and Loftus-Cheek in the middle of the field. They actually played as midfield players. Now, the first team are not doing that. They're playing totally different.
They're playing with one midfielder.
They're playing with one midfielder. And you said Lingard and Dele Alli, and we were talking about like up in front of the ball. Like, I don't know what's going to happen when they play the first team, because if you get past those, you're going to be and also getting on the ball. So, I think when you're going into a World Cup like this, you have a formation, you know? And all the players should be in on that formation. So the 3 lads that played tonight, right, if they're promoted at some stage to the first team, they're going to be playing in a totally different system. So you're not learning anything from it. Whereas I think Belgium, from what I could see of them, were playing in a certain way and very, very good technically as well. I think they were better than England. I would say if and when they go into the first team, that's what they do.
So
that's to my opinion, that's preparation.
Yeah.
That's what you do, you know. But that wasn't the case with England tonight. I mean, they had Dyer in the middle of the field, who I'm no fan of at all, and I say Delph and Loftus-Cheek as midfield players. Now, Loftus-Cheek wasn't a very good midfield player. He was getting into some bad position, but that's the position he was picked in, right? So I think when you're dealing with all the players, Nathan, in practice, say there's 2 right backs or 3 right backs, you tell them the same thing as the lads in the team. So when they do come in, it's only common sense when they know what they have to do, and same with the left back situation. Now, the lads that played tonight, whether it be Delph or anything else, actually played in a way that the first team don't play. So there's no continuity in that. So Belgium definitely got more from, apart from winning the game, I think they got more from it than England could possibly get anything.
So simple as you pick up an injury in the next game, or even when you're thinking about making substitutions, you're not 100% sure, and probably the player isn't 100% sure because he's never actually played in that position alongside those players.
Exactly, that's exactly right. I mean, if England at the moment now, say Delph is left-sided midfield player, right? They haven't played that in the previous 2 matches. They've got Henderson and they've got the other lads that we explained before who are forward players. Now, who's going to come in if one of those players are out? Because they're overloaded. Well, obviously Rashford would come in for Dele Alli, somebody else, but they're all forwards. I can't see any of the midfield players coming in for anybody because there hasn't anybody been there before them to come into the team.
Yeah, so England now go on through to the last 16. The draw for the last 16 then sees England play Colombia next Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. Belgium take on Japan. From what you've seen of Colombia, they started slowly. They've had moments of brilliance. Have you seen enough from Colombia that they could really trouble England in that game?
Well, they'll threaten more than the other teams that we played, that's for sure. Panama and Tunisia. There's no doubt they'll have a go. I think one of the best players got injured today, though.
One of the Colombian players. I didn't see that. Yeah, possibly.
But they will play, and they're going to be much better than Tunisia and Panama. That's for sure. So it's going to be like a new test for England, because the teams they played against didn't. Well, the first match they made they should. To be fair, it should have been all over early on, and it wasn't. But coming into the Colombia now, it's going to be a different. I think you'll go back to the team that played with the system, the formation that he played in.
And is tonight forgotten about for England?
Tonight forgot about.
You don't think it has any impact on momentum or anything like that?
You couldn't learn anything from it. Like if I could understand tonight if they played in the same formation that they played in when the other players weren't playing, you could say, well, that's what they're doing. And they learned from that tonight.
But in terms of the buzz and the energy, everyone's getting very excited after the first 2 games. That it seems as though it's dissipated somewhat with that performance.
I don't think it will, because the players didn't play. There's no doubt Southgate will say, forget about that. That's a match that's gone. We'll start from scratch again next week. So I think it won't affect the morale. Although there's nothing better than winning. I mean, if I was manager, I'd be tempted to play the full team there tonight.
And just keep the momentum going.
Keep it going. You're out there. This is what you do. You win another match, and there's nothing better than being on a winning streak for the confidence and everything that's doing. And also, it's an extra match for playing the way he's going to play in the competitive. I'm assuming now he's going to play in the same way as he did for the first 2 matches.
We spoke a lot during the Champions League and around the League Cup and FA Cup about VAR and the introduction, and I know you're a big supporter of it. It's really come to life over the past couple of weeks because there's been a couple of important decisions feels in every single game. Do you still feel it's the right way for football to go?
Yeah, well, before the World Cup, I would have waited for the next World Cup to have it perfect, because the people who don't like it would be waiting to say, it's in its infancy still. I think it's been brilliant. I thought it was very unfair the other day. Didi Hamann is a pal of mine, and Alan Shearer, I know, was against it before he even saw what it was about. That it was a bad day, one of the days the other day for VAR. There's no doubt about it.
So this was the Spain, Portugal, Iran. This was the night of Iran-Spain.
No, it was just the other night where the penalty decision. Remember the fullback jumped and he hit the ball accidentally, and there was a couple of decisions which were wrong. I mean, I don't think it was a penalty. It was a bad night. And everybody picked on that. What did we do? There was 27 matches before that, which were good, and especially the next day, the match. Who was it the other day?
Germany and South Korea.
South Korea. I mean, most people who were listening to us probably watched the match. South Korea scored the first goal. Now, I thought he was definitely offside. You have to eliminate that goal. So it went to, and it turned out the ball hit between the German's legs, and he wasn't offside. Now, the referee couldn't see. Nobody could see that, right? If that hadn't been for VAR, that goal would have been disallowed, and totally shown the referee up, because we would have seen it on the television as a replay, right? And we would have seen. So it was going against the referee. What's happening at the moment is actually helping the referees. 99% of the time, in my opinion. With that particular referee, he didn't see it. He gave the offside. Go to VAR. So, it's okay. I made a mistake. No bother. It stands, and it's an important goal. And there were other decisions made in the competition. And I think no coincidence that there was more penalties in this competition than ever before. I keep seeing it in the paper, more penalties, but nobody's saying, well, most of that is down to the VAR. There's no doubt about it. And I think it'll get better, Nathan. This is the first time it's been in a World Cup. It's the first time it was in the Premiership this year in some of the matches. And it's in its infancy. It'll get better and better, I think, as it goes along, because it'll eliminate some of the things. One thing I'd like to see about VAR is to be proactive in the pushing and all the things around the penalty area.
We've seen a couple of decisions where VAR have got involved, but the vast majority, it seems, they haven't.
They should be proactive. You know, I think what happens with the VAR a lot, that the referee has to call for it. No, I think they can be proactive to say to the referee, look, there's a lot of pushing and I tell you, honestly, if they do it for 2 or 3 matches, it'll stop it. Because the manager will say to his players, look, don't do it, because you're going to give a penalty away, or you're going to be booked. Just you can't. Now, at the moment, they're encouraging the players to do it, because they can get away with it.
Yeah.
The opposite will happen. They say, look, whatever you do, don't, and it'll stop it. And it has to be stopped. The other thing that's annoying me a little bit, is the players feigning injury. Oh, it's ridiculous. They're getting a little push across their face and they're down holding their head. I think what's should happen now, referee shouldn't stop the game. Let the game go on.
So if they think a player, I guess that's a difficult thing for a referee, because you only need to get badly caught out once and somebody is seriously injured.
Yeah, but it's like obviously you can see a serious head injury, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can see a serious. But they're going down. Somebody's brushing the side of their face and they're going down. You saw the Portuguese lad who was a tough nut.
Yeah.
And he got a little back, and he's down. They're all doing it now, and every time, and they're really rolling around. Actually, you ever see them rolling around and stamping the ground? Now, my experience as a player, when you get a bad knock, the last thing you do is roll around.
Yeah, you're in too much pain.
You're too much pain. You just want to stay still, and you want to see them rolling around in that. And I think if the majority of them anyway, if the referee said, "No, we'll play on," they're up and about. I see them. They're getting down, getting treatment, and 2 minutes later, they're up running around. But anyway, it's just irritating, and I think it should be stopped.
And probably on a similar point, and maybe these are a couple of things that they can work on ahead of the next World Cup and heading into tournaments next season. The appealing for VAR, constant appealing for VAR from players, you'd assume.
But that'll stop, Nathan. You see, what should come into that? It should be recognised by the player. If you go to the referee, he's going to book you straight away. No, so, see, everything is habit in football, you know. Players are being allowed, when there's a penalty decision given against them, they're around the crowd. And people complain about the time in between. But if you take the time when there's a penalty decision given, it's controversial, and the players get around the referee, how long does it take to sort that out?
Yeah.
Because they're pushing them here, they're pushing them there, and they're pushing them there.
Now
they're rushing to go to VAR.
Yeah.
Right? But they shouldn't be allowed to approach the referee. If any of the players come over, if it's 2 or 3 players, you book them.
Yeah.
Or you send one of them off.
They just need to start doing that.
They stop it. Everything in football is habit. And they've been in the habit of challenging everything that the referees players have, and they got away with it. Right? Now, if they start it now with the VAR, say, if you approach the referee, you're going to be booked. The captain can approach the referee. Right? Because they run to the referee for everything now. Like when the goal was called before it was controversial, they run to the referee. You're waiting 2 or 3 minutes to clear it up. But they can stop all that. But I think there's nothing sure. In 4 years' time, when we play in the next World Cup, I think it'll be perfect. And what the main thing is, see, all of the critics that I hear saying, you say, but I have to say, they got the right decision.
Which ultimately is all that matters.
Like, they should be starting with that. Like saying, well, great, we got the right decision, but there was a bit long in between, and we should have done, and we can do it and that. But and by the way, we got the right decision.
The one other thing, and I hadn't really noticed it with VAR before this tournament, but there's so much at stake that in the last 4 or 5 minutes of almost every game, it seems to have been complete chaos with the amount of appealing, because, and it's only going to be heightened more as we head towards the knockout stages, if there is any sort of doubt over a decision in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a World Cup quarter-final, semi-final or final, how can the referee not go to VAR? How can they have it hanging over them that they didn't take the second option. So every time there's a corner kick and a player goes down, you're going to end up with the referee going that it's almost too chaotic in those closing stages, that it's getting a bit out of control.
Well, obviously it's going to be more difficult, but the referee has to make a decision on it. But if it becomes part of the rule that the referee is left alone to do it, then you won't have the players running to him to put him under pressure to do it. The players have to stay away. And the guy upstairs, you see, don't forget, you have the guy upstairs that can say to the referee, I think you should have a look at that.
Yeah.
It's not just the referees, because there'll be a lot of pushing and pulling, but it'll take time, Nathan. And the players, in my opinion, will get used to the fact that you can't go to the referee to appeal for it. You keep away from the referee, you're going to be booked. Because in my time in football, you could see things happening in football, Nathan, like that were become habits, become part of the game that weren't there before. You know.
Yeah.
And like, for example, I remember years ago starting when it started, say the ball going out of play and you got the centre forward trying to get at the ball and the defender keeping him out of the way.
Yeah, just shielding it out.
Shielding it out of play. Now, it's got the stage, even to this day, it could be 10 yards.
Yeah, and you'll never get a free.
Didn't get a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Now, if and when it started, if the referees had started then, as soon as that happened, gave a penalty kick, the players wouldn't do it. Players take it. I mean, I still one you take advantage as much as you possibly can. But once something is in, and it stops. Habits, you get rid of the habits. And with the VAR, with the appealing, for example, that's what you're saying near the end of it. You can't appeal.
Yeah, so they just
the captain might be able to go up, but you can't have loads of players around the referee. You're booked. Are you going to be sent off? Can't do it.
Yeah,
that'll become part of the game. I think in 4 years' time, it's still not perfect by any means, but it's only just come out, the VAR. But look at all the things it's done. In England, you go back to the West Brom match. You remember West Brom Liverpool match?
Yeah.
With 4 decisions in that. The referee VAR was right in every one of them. And again, I remember listening to it on the television guys, the co-commentators. Oh, look at what time wasted, look at this, look at that and the other. And again, before it went back to studio, but we have to say...
They got it right.
They got it right. Went back to the studio, it was Alan Shearer's, all that carry on, yeah. But you have to say, got it right. That's the most important thing.
You can get out for a bit of golf tomorrow and maybe talk to the family, because there's no games at all in the World Cup tomorrow. At the last 16 confirmed, Saturday we have France against Argentina, Uruguay against Portugal. On Sunday it's Russia against Spain, Croatia against Denmark. Monday we have Brazil against Mexico, Belgium, Japan, and then on Tuesday Sweden against Switzerland and Colombia against England. If you were to pick 3 teams who've impressed you and who you really feel are going to kick on to the semi-finals, who are the 3 that have stood out?
I started with Brazil, and I didn't think they played well in the first match, and I think they've improved in the 2 matches since. So I would go back to Brazil. Spain haven't been what we'd expect them to be, but they're through, so they might grow with it. The outsider has to be Croatia of the big team, because it was the best display against poor Argentina. Might come on a bit. Now that they've got over that particular manager's gone, I think they got through unexpectedly in the end, but they're there.
What a transformation it would be if they beat France.
Well, I don't fancy France. France haven't played well at all. Now, they were one of the teams I picked. Well, most people picked them, but they haven't done it. Germany are out. Didn't do it. So what other big teams have we got? Yeah.
What about Croatia on the side of the draw? So the way the draw has fallen, you basically, it seems, have Spain and Croatia are the 2 outstanding teams on one side of the draw, and everybody else, all the other teams expected to challenge, are on one. And it's looking like we may well end up with a Spain-Croatia quarter-final, which could be be one of the games of the tournament.
Unless Spain grow it. Some teams grow at the tournament, Nathan. We've seen it before. Italy, I think a few years ago, drew the first 3 matches or something. They wanted to coach home and they went on to win it. England, in their matches, going back a long time, drew the first 2 matches and then grew into it. So it's hard to know. I mean, Croatia have got off to a good start, and unless Spain improve, it could be a shock.
Yeah. John, great stuff. Thanks a lot for coming into studio again this evening. Brilliant stuff. So England finished second in their group, beaten 1-0 by Belgium. All that good stuff from John is going to be up on offtheball.com very shortly. But the football show continues. 53106 for our text. Next, we're going to go live to Russia, and we're going to check in with Dan McDonnell.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
The Eason Book Club on The Pat Kenny Show.
This month, Eason recommended 4 books for us. Violet Hill by Henrietta McCurvey, Mind on Fire by Arnold Thomas Fanning, Last Stories by William Trevor, and our Eason Book Club Book of the Month for July, Warlight by Michael Ananjati. In 1945, just after World War II, 14-year-old Nathaniel and his older sister Rachel stay behind in London when their parents move to Singapore, leaving them in the care of a mysterious figure named the Moth. They suspect he might be a criminal, and they grow both more convinced and less concerned as they come to know his eccentric crew of friends. And what does it mean when the siblings' mother returns after months of silence without their father? We'll be reviewing the book from cover to cover on Thursday, July 19th with Mary O'Rourke, Brian Kennedy and Catherine Lynch.
The Eason Book Club on The Pat Kenny Show. Sharing book recommendations with book lovers every month.
Discover more at newstalk.com/Eason's Book Club.
It's one of the great London derbies and it's coming to Dublin. Arsenal versus Chelsea, Aviva Stadium, Wednesday, August 1st. See the stars of 2 of the Premier League's leading teams as they do battle in the International Champions Cup. Tickets on sale now from Ticketmaster.ie. Booking fee applies. Don't miss out. Get your tickets early. Arsenal v Chelsea, August 1st. Kick-off 8:05 p.m.
2010. The year of bailouts, volcanic ash clouds, and those pesky vuvuzelas. It was also the year Nissan launched the 100% electric Leaf. Over 8 years, the Leaf has gone from 0 to the world's best-selling electric vehicle and 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 7.9 seconds. Now, the all-new 100% electric Nissan Leaf has arrived. 0 left to prove. Book your test drive today at nissan.ie. Nissan. Innovation that excites.
In Athlone, you're at the heart of summer fun. Climb Ireland's most fortified castle, cycle Ireland's newest greenway, celebrate with a pint in Ireland's oldest pub, and still you've barely scratched the surface. I'm Viking Mike, and for great summer days and nights in Athlone's lakelands, you're at the heart of it. For all there is to see and do, visit athlone.ie.
When it comes to uniforms, the very early bird beats the school rush. So before the summer holidays begin, get next term sorted. There's only 1 week left to save 20% on back-to-school uniforms. M&S. Spend it well. Terms, conditions and exclusions apply.
Bruce Betting are one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. Download the iOS app today to see why Bruce Betting are giving you more for World Cup 2018. Bruce Betting, your World Cup bookmaker. In-store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Cash for Clubs is back. Last year, our hockey club in Bray won the top prize of €10,000.
Be in with a chance of winning thousands for your local club by fueling up at Circle K. Find out more by registering today on playerpark.ie. See playerpark.ie for details. Promotion ends on Sunday, 19th of August.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Okay, you're very welcome back to Thursday's football show. So as I was just saying to John Giles, the last 16 confirmed, and it all starts with a biggie on Saturday at 3 o'clock, France against Argentina. We can chat on the line now to Dan McDonnell, who is in Russia. Evening, Dan.
Hi, Nathan. How are you?
And to think, just this time last week, you were sitting beside us here in studio, and now you're halfway across the world. It's an incredible thing.
I know. I've seen a lot of the world in that time, more than I even expected.
Oh, really? Go on.
Well, not especially, but I mean, it's I'm in Kazan, as you mentioned, which is, I don't know, it's like 1,000 kilometers or so from Moscow, and it's sort of a good 12-hour train journey. And I sort of wasn't prepared for the fact that it was going to be bright at around 2:30 in the morning. Pretty much darkness. Maybe other people have said this, darkness between 11 and 2:30 a.m. or something. So I ended up awake for most of the train journey, sort of watching the path from Moscow to like Tatarstan, which is where Kazan is. So, interesting terrain, interesting parts of the world. Quite different to Moscow here, it must be said.
What's the best thing about Kazan?
the best thing about Kazan, God, see, this sounds very cliched, but it's actually the people are they're very, very, very friendly. Like Moscow has the London big city, vibe going on. It's on the metro and no one's looking out for you if you're looking a bit lost. I mean, here, everywhere you go and you pause for a second, there's someone coming up to figure out like what's going wrong. I was actually out for a bit of lunch earlier having soup, and this local woman just started like speaking very angrily at me. Not angrily, but sort of, animatedly looking at me, and I was looking at her. And basically she went off and got some breadcrumbs for me because she reckoned it would enhance the soup. And that was her whole point. So this is becoming a thing. I just went to get mosquito spray. I was in the shop for like 30 seconds. People crowding around. So, I love it. I had been here before in the winter 6-7 years ago. And it's a gorgeous place as well. But I have to say it's slightly different. It's sort of half Russian, half Tatari. And there would be like quite a big sort of Islamic sort of population here as well. I went out to watch the Belgium game in a place, and it's all shisha bars and stuff like that. It's very different culturally too, but yeah, fascinating place to visit.
Russia in general during this World Cup has been getting rave reviews from all the journalists, everybody who's over there covering it, anybody who's over there as a supporter. The welcome has been so warm. It's not anything like what we have read about Russia for decades at this stage, of this closed state of people who are constantly being put down by their leaders, who are putting on a brave face but are generally unhappy. Like, is this everybody is putting a smile on for all the foreigners coming over, or do you get a sense actually this is normal life and everybody's just getting on and we're being fed a big lie?
Yeah, I'd be more so leaning towards the latter, although at the same time, it's like a country of like 144 million people, and going to a couple of cities isn't giving you like the basis for a sort of a sociological study. But at the same time, I mean, funnily enough, I was just sitting in that place before watching the game, and a guy just started chatting away to me for most of the game, the best English I've sort of encountered, and he just brought that very point up. It's like, what do you think of Russia? And he was like, yeah, I read all the comments, and I read the English papers, and not just the English papers, he said, but I would read the comments below and all the comments about Russia and all. And I mean, he wasn't sitting there going, this is a wonderful place. But I think the point has been made that to judge a country through its politicians is a bizarre thing to do, because people are people, and normal life will be different here. But I mean, it's functional, it works. People are quite happy. I mean, I even feel like it's sort of semi-patronizing talking in these terms. So look at these people, aren't they happy? Like that's rubbish. Like these are like huge, in some cases, like, very big cities that are working quite well. It's not sort of people, in sackcloth and ashes or something, standing looking bedraggled, Now, you did notice on the terrain moving here that, I mean, you passed some, I guess, habitations that looked maybe, pretty grim. But again, like, there's also vast parts of Russia that are sort of, uninhabited for parts and stuff too, So, but I think it's been a real positivity about the experience. I think maybe Kaliningrad, I wasn't there. People maybe haven't been too enamored by that. But places like Kazan and, Ekaterinburg and places like that, I mean, they're getting very good reviews. And I think with good reason from what I've seen.
Where are you right now?
Yeah, no, I'm in Kazan at the moment.
Is that your apartment or is that a hotel room?
It's a hotel, yeah. The one thing I would say about Kazan is that it's unbelievably cheap. Like, compared to Moscow, the first place I stayed in was pretty modest. But I mean, it's like a London sort of parallel. Going to hotels in London, you can pay money and not do very well. Whereas in Kazan, you can actually do okay. I mean, a standard taxi journey here for 15-20 minutes is the equivalent of €1.80. And I'm in a hotel which is a pretty average standard price, and it's pretty good. I actually...
Oh, go on, Dan. Your boss is in the indoor listening. What are you going to expense it for, and how much does it actually cost?
No. It's a fair price. It's a fair price. But I didn't realise when I checked in that it's actually the hotel. It's like a business IT hotel, but it's also like the centre of the press centre for Kazan in the tournament. So there's actually press events on there across the day to do with the World Cup. Now, they're all very much a local audience. Like, the head of the local Jewish community was in at 3 o'clock today to give like a press conference on how things were going for them there. So there's a lot of activity going on around the World Cup too, not just like the games themselves and within the host cities. I mean, this is the one place when I come off the train, like there's still camera crews there, you know, wanting to interview anyone that looks a small bit different compared to what they're used to. You know, so they're very much embracing the novelty of people coming here once and never being back again, you know, in all reality, or hoping that they might come back again.
We want to talk about some of the last 16 games that are coming up. We now know the full rundown of the last 16 after Belgium beat England by 1-0. So Belgium topped that group. They will play Japan, an easier draw in the round of 16, but could get a whole lot harder. Then England get what they wanted, it seems, in many ways. They finish second in the group. They'll play Colombia, which does look like a tough tie on Tuesday evening, but from there on in, it may get a little bit easier. Here is what Gareth Southgate had to say
Gareth,
after
it's the end of an unbeaten run, a long unbeaten run since last year. Did you deserve better or not?
I think it's a pretty even game. You know, I thought they had some better controlled possession than us at times. They had the better chances in the first half. We've had a couple of really good ones in the second, so it was a good test for us. And of course, we've had double objectives tonight, really, with half an eye on the knockout.
When you saw Marcus Rashford running through there in the second half, what did you think?
Yeah, well, it's a great chance, but you know, the good thing with him and Jamie, they kept working and they kept looking for those openings. So didn't happen for him tonight, but we don't suffer for it.
It is the consolation, though. You get an extra day to prepare now for the Colombia game. It's a shorter trip to Moscow, and you're arguably in the easier half of the draw.
Well, we want to win football matches, so of course we're not happy to come away from here having been beaten. But what that means for the next round, we don't really know.
If you'd really needed to win tonight, though, you would have brought on Harry Kane, for instance.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think we feel that the knockout phase, this was a game we wanted to win, but the knockout game is the biggest game for a decade for us. So we've got to make sure that our key players were preserved.
And how much better do England need to be next Tuesday?
Well, I think the players that have played tonight have given absolutely everything and never stopped, and we've created the openings to get something from the game. So you know, everybody's seen the level that we've been playing at. We can see the level of some of the best, and we've got to just keep improving.
And finally, in terms of momentum, you wanted that. Has it stalled a bit tonight or not?
No, I think we talked about momentum. Momentum shifts in games, and I think what we did, we kept pressing right to the end. You know, I mean, the supporters here have been absolutely brilliant tonight. Fantastic following for us. So I think they understand what the most important thing is.
Thank you, Gareth.
Cheers, Gabriel.
Most unfortunate in many ways, Dan, for Gareth Southgate, who has done pretty much everything right in this tournament, that he ends up in a position, having won their first two games, where there's this huge debate about whether winning their third game or losing it is the best thing to do. And it feels as though he's found himself in a bit of a no-lose situation. He rested a lot of players, and if they were to go out against Colombia, having given up that game, he's going to be slaughtered.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough one for him, because you wonder what would the mentality be in other countries with regard to this. I mean, maybe we don't consume it in the same way, but it just seems like, you know, the whole circus around England, that it's always moving on. There's always a furore or a story or a sensation, and you could see, even just following, you know, comments as the game went on tonight, that tone was shifting. There's a damned if you do, damned if you don't element to it. Like, I mean, I think there's a certain pragmatism about it that isn't that ridiculous. It's a huge motivation for Colombia. I mean, as if they need it already. I mean, they're a hell of a passionate team. You know, if they come out and knock out England and come out afterwards and say, well, we were really fired up by this and by these comments or whatever, yeah, I can see how that becomes a problem. And I also can see the point of, you overthink it, you can look too clever and you can go out anyway. But it is an attractive route that they've got, and they've got to, like, you know, rest a couple of legs during a tournament when they probably are quite reliant on one or two players. Harry Kane was mentioned in the interview there, maybe, you know, more so than other nations might be. So I sort of wouldn't be losing my mind over it. I mean, Belgium tried to do the same thing and just happened to win. Like, you have these games where, you know, there's nothing to lose, yet this was like a really weird, twisted version of that, you know? Yeah, and it was just a complete non-event. Even the locals around were just like, this is, what is this rubbish,
The bigger frustration for Southgate is probably that the players who were playing, and John Giles touched on, they played a different system, which probably wasn't ideal for a lot of players, but that the players who did get to play in positions that are relative to the first choice 11 didn't take their chance. So there was been an awful lot of talk of whether Marcus Rashford should be starting ahead of Raheem Sterling. Didn't show enough tonight, fluffed his one big chance. Danny Rose, likewise, maybe expected to put some pressure on Ashley Young. Didn't really happen. So I guess that's the frustration for Southgate, that actually he doesn't have the headaches he might have thought he'd have after this game.
No, I that's a point. But as you mentioned, even they changed the system around a bit, which makes you wonder, again, just about the seriousness of the exercise. And you can flip it to a positive and say, the Panama game could have been deceptive. I mean, it was deceptive. They weren't very good. But at least if he does need players against Colombia to come in, that they won't be completely, so they haven't been involved in the tournament to this point, and you're throwing in even, a Rashford or Vardy, whoever, when they've only played a handful of minutes. So you can find a positive. I just have a feeling that England are going to, they'll have this 24 hours and then they'll suddenly come out with a fresh perspective on Saturday, Sunday. Some good teams will get knocked out on Saturday and Sunday. England will still be in it on Tuesday, and I have a funny feeling that they will manage to generate some positive momentum back. I mean, Southgate's a pretty good communicator as well, which possibly helps in terms of dealing with whatever grief he's going to get. But I sort of sympathise with his position a small bit, I have to say.
Yeah, now that you mention it, they are the last game on Tuesday evening, so by then there'll be only 9 teams left, and they will be one of them, which I'm sure they can spin in a positive. So why are you in Kazan, Dan? What game are you going to be watching?
Well, I was at South Korea and Germany, and this is the gamble you take. I mean, I plotted my trip ahead. So South Korea, Germany, I mean, I was going to that game. That turned out to be a huge story. And then I was going to a round of 16 game, which I sort of thought was going to be France, maybe Croatia, maybe France, Iceland. And it's ended up being France and Argentina, which is just luck. But I'm going to pretend it's planning, but I mean, it's luck.
Some guys have all the luck, Dan.
Yeah, so I mean, Kazan is pretty quiet today, but I sort of guessed, put the glass to the window. I feel like I can hear the Argentines sort of coming in the distance, because like they sort of bring the noise everywhere that they go. And there is a sort of good central area here, a real sort of Grafton Street, a real pedestrianised area, which last night was pretty subdued naturally because Germany had gone out and Korea had gone out too, but they were in good form. But I think when Argentina come to town and they're playing France, this is the place to be in the next 48 hours. So
yeah, sure is, because that is without question, I think, the pick of the games in the last 16. So that's a 3 o'clock kickoff Irish time on Saturday, and who knows? France haven't clicked into gear. Now, there's no prizes for being the best team in the group stage, and maybe they get better and better as this tournament rolls on and we forget about the group stage completely. But Argentina are suddenly riding this crest of a wave. Messi's back. He's the hero. He's the god once again. If they win this game, the momentum changes completely.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. I mean, I was just doing a piece there for tomorrow's paper, trying to predict, the round of 16 and stuff like that. And this is the one I'm agonised with, because I'm probably still leaning towards France because it's logical, really. Argentina were all over the shop. And yet, you just have this thought in your head that if France don't get ahead early, if France are level, say after an hour of this game, and it's one of these typical knockout games that almost pattern the form becomes slightly irrelevant and it comes down to bottle, you're just not sure about this French team. You're just not sure. Deschamps is trying to do things before the tournament that he doesn't play Giroud, then he brings Giroud back in. He rests players for the third game. I'm not sure in his case how inspired that looked. And if you've got Messi on the pitch and it's 0-0 or it's 1-1 and it's tight, you still think he's going to do something. So I just think it's fascinating. I think if France start well, they can expose Argentina's flaws and they can go and do it. But the longer the game goes on and there's some degree of parity, the more it's plausible that Argentina will pull it out.
Dan, great stuff. Enjoy your week in Russia. We will talk to you again maybe this time next week, maybe even a little bit before. But enjoy France-Argentina. Very jealous. It's going to be a cracking game. Dan McDonnell in Kazan. Good luck.
Cheers, guys.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
We all want to build a better health service, and to do that, we need to hear from people using our services day to day. All adults who finish to stay in a general hospital during May are being invited to share their experience by taking part in the National Patient Experience Survey. Patients will be contacted after they leave hospital and invited to take part. For more information, visit patientexperience.ie. From the HSE, the Health Information and Quality Authority and the Department of Health.
Get €2,500 off a new Fiat Tipo and a diesel for the same price as a petrol from just €17,995. That saving will get you a pram that sings lullabies, a crib with its own ensuite, and a bottle of champagne to drink the day they leave home. The new Fiat Tipo from €17,995 plus up to €2,500 off and a diesel petrol price match. Visit your local dealer or go to fiat.ie. Applies to vehicles registered before 31st of July 2018. Price excludes delivery and related charges. T's and C's apply.
You should definitely call your ex at 4 in the morning. Sure, she hasn't heard from you in ages.